Hello everyone, welcome to the build showcase for Archmage Hierophant with Rage Tech. Yeah, as I've said in my previous video, I've wanted to go for a caster for mapping and I was already playing Ice Nova, and I've wanted to revisit Arc because it's one of my favorite skills in this game and I didn't want to burn my eyes or my GPU while playing, and I'm a bit sick of Ice Nova after playing it 2 leagues in a row. This won't be a build guide, it's just a showcase of what I've done with it, so keep that in mind while watching this video. Let's face it, Arc is not in a great position in terms of damage and scaling it can be quite hard. This build is a hybrid, combining power charge and mana stacking together and increasing the damage with rage thanks to the Ravenous Passion helmet. Sure, you can always go with full power charge stacking route with Cloak of Defiance, Badge of Brotherhood, Ralakesh, dual Void batteries, but I've played with a similar setup in the Crucible League and I can tell you, your only source of defense will be Mind over Matter and Arcane Cloak, or in other words, cast on that portal. It's not really suited for mapping in my opinion, if you go that way. The current budget of this build is around 800 divines. It's not cheap. I've pretty much crafted everything myself, but here's a breakdown of the budget with current market prices. A 4 flask mage blood, 300 divines. Enchants on both wands, 200 divines. T1 mana or hybrid fractured wand bases, 60 divines, 30 divines for each. Crafting the wands, another 60 divines. Of course you can spend less, this depends on where you want to settle with the wands. I settled with T2 cast speed and these are far from finished, but I'm just using them like this. An utmost with at least 6% maximum elemental resist. You can get it 5% and try to hit the resistance catalyst. I've done it like that. I bought mine for 50 divines. And of course you need high spell suppression as well, at least 25 or 26. So I will just say 100 divines for the utmost. Unique jewels are cheap at this point of the league. Militant Fate was the most expensive, I guess, 9 divines or something like that. The Light of Meaning and other jewels are really cheap right now, so I will just say 15 divines for the unique jewels. The Watcher's Eye in the build is not that special. It only has critical strike chance mod for Rat and clarity mod for mana added as ES. Of course, if you want to go for a better one, you can. I suggest going with damage penetrates elemental resistance on Rat. So 5 divines for the Watcher's Eye, you can buy something like this. And I will just say 50 divines for the rest of the gear at a ballpark. I don't know how much it cost me. I've crafted these over the time and they are far from perfect. So in total it goes up to 800 divines, the current version of the build. Of course you can take this a lot higher if that's what you want. As for the gear for the current version, I've tried to increase the damage while keeping the defenses somewhat reasonable. Again, this is not a guide, you need a level Templar and a Mage Blood if you want to play this version. I've switched from Ice Nova. I've used Mage Blood in a more defensive manner. With 3 elemental flasks and utmost, we can reach 90% maximum resist. If utmost feels too expensive, you can buy a 4% one and get the rest from the body armor implicit. On top of that, we're also capped in spell suppression, even without quartz flask and implicits on the glows. Before I got utmost, I was using spell suppression on the implicit, and I used a cluster jewel with Doriani's lesson to get lightning damage leech as life. But I feel like this is better like this because you will lose a lot of points, preferably from life, so your life will go down if you want to use cluster jewels. And for the final flask, I'm using a diamond flask to get closer to crit capping. You will be quite strong against elemental damage, and it's not that bad against physical damage. Since I've anointed Battle Trance on the amulet, you need an additional curse source. You can use a fractured body armor, but it's expensive. So I'm just using Anathema and linked 3 curses to Arcanist Brand. I'm not using it, but if you want, you can also use Enfeeble instead of Conductivity or Punishment to be more tanky. And if you go with Cluster Jewels, you can also use Impossible Escape to allocate Battle Trance. And you can still use Whispers of Doom on your amulet. In my opinion, the clear of Arc isn't that bad. Oriat's End is not really necessary. You can use a flask of your choosing, either a Progenesis, Bottled Fate, or even a Life Flask. Aside from that, our 6th link is similar to Ice Nova. I've just added increased critical damage instead of Intensify. At 7 power charges, it doesn't make that much of a difference, but if you want to min-max the build, you can swap Inspiration with power charge on critical. Mana isn't an issue compared to Ice Nova, since we're not casting 8 arcs per second. You can't face tank damage in this build, as you can in Ice Nova. Since the damage is not that high, Leech will not let you do that, so keep that in mind. The gameplay is quite straightforward and a bit more active. We use Frostblink of Wintry Blast for movement, use Arc, and if there's a strong rare or unique monster, we use Sigil of Power, Frost Shield, and Arcanist Brand. I've tried using Lightning Warp for movement. It's not that bad, but still Frostblink feels better, especially with Spell Echo. You can also pop Berserk if you want. Right now we can't really sustain it, because the mana cost of the skill is lower than 200. If you swap Inspiration later on and get more mana, you can sustain it at 38 rage for quite a while. But of course, due to the nature of Berserk, your rage will fall off eventually. I've added the footage of Uber Shaper, but I don't recommend this build for Uber bossing. But if you really want, you can take down Ubers without too much problem. It just takes longer compared to a dedicated bosser. This build cannot run the following map modes. And I don't recommend running these modes unless you want to make maps miserable for yourself. You can find the PoE in the description. This custom modifier in the configuration is due to the haunted enchant on the wands, because as far as I know, the PoE doesn't calculate them. Each enchant gives you 35% increased cast and attack speed, movement speed. You will get this buff after 10 seconds upon entering a zone. I've added 2 different loadouts to the PoE. The first is the current version and the second is the min-maxed. In the min-max version, I recommend using a mirror tier power charge ring, because the bases of these rings, just for the power charge, are already 200 divines or more. It's more plausible to just mirror one instead of using something like that. Even if you don't like the build's performance, you can always switch back to Ice Nova or a similar skill. The rest is up to you. You can even go for mirror tier wands, but I don't think it's that necessary. That's it from this video. If you have any questions about the build, whether about the choices or crafting processes of the items, just let me know and I will answer them as best as I can. Finally, I have a quick announcement to make. I will start streaming on Twitch starting from tomorrow. It's mostly for footage purposes, as I mentioned this in a previous video. I don't have that much storage, but I will see you there if you want to drop by. You can find the link to the channel in the description. As for the final build of this league, I'm a bit torn between playing Splitting Steel and Molten Strike of Zenith. Or I don't know, maybe I might go crazy and play Flicker Strike. I have about 150 divines now. Of course, I will need to farm more to play any of these builds, because Splitting Steel requires a Nimbus, Flicker Strike and Molten Strike are really expensive, multiple mirror builds. So I will just think about it. I just want something that I can keep pouring currency into and play it as my final build until the league ends or until I stop playing. Anyway, Thanks for watching. I'd appreciate it if you liked the video and subscribe to the channel. I will see you on the next video or on the stream. As always, have a good one.